Hello, 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 and welcome to this episode of She Talks Business. Today, we are going to have the second in my Take series, and I am going to talk to you about this book called Come Up for Air, written by Nick Sonnenberg. It is a fantastic book, but before I talk about that, I want to share something with you. There is a rule. It is called the 94% rule, and it was coined by W. Edwards Deming, who is one of the greatest quality and systems guru ever. And this is what the rule states. I'm reading this rule. So the rule states that 94% of the results we experience in the workplace, both good or poor, are a function of the systems and processes in which people work, not the efforts of people, which means that 94% of your results, 94% of your successes, 94% of your failures are all caused by the systems you have in place. One of the lessons that I have learned over the last few years of my business, because my goodness, I've been operating this business, I think, since 2008. And so we're now in 2024, which means it's been almost 16 years that we've been operating this business. And one of the things that I have realized is that when you put a system in place and the system doesn't necessarily work the way you want it to, your default is to put a band-aid on the system. Your default is to maybe put multiple band-aids on the system because you want to try to fix the system, but instead of stepping back and looking at the system from a big picture perspective to decide, does this system still serve me? What you're doing is you're putting like exception band-aids all over the system. And the more you weigh a system down with exception band-aids, the less effective the system is going to be. So this book, Come Up for Air, that Nick Sonnenberg wrote, the subtitle is How Teams Can Leverage Systems and Tools to Stop Drowning in Work. One of the things that I hear people say all the time is they don't have enough bandwidth. And there's another rule. It's called the rule of 3 and 10. And it essentially means that every time you triple the size of your business or you triple the size of the number of employees in your business, everything breaks. And I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but I've talked about it in the strategy lab. So when you're one person, it's really easy because it's just you. When you're 3 people, it's still really easy because you can communicate with 2 other people and let them know what needs to be done very easily. But when you get to 10 people, now things start to get a little bit more complicated because you need a leader, you need, some systems. You can't go to one person at a time as easily when you have 10 people. When you get to 30, it becomes even more problematic. So as your business grows, it's really important that you have the right systems in place to help you operationalize the things that you want to do for your customers and the things that you want to do internally so that you can get the best results. So let me tell you what my take on this book is. My take is this book is excellent. This book, if you look at my book, I know for those of you listening, you can't see, but I have a whole bunch of flags in it. And I literally bought copies of this book for everyone on my leadership team, including my project manager, because I want everyone to understand the way Nick talks about systems. So he has this concept in the book called CPR, which is really smart. It stands for Communication, Planning, and Resources. And essentially, this whole book is about taking your communication and separating it between internal and external, taking your planning and ensuring that you have the right work management tools, and then taking your resources and making sure you have knowledge base and process management tools, which I think is super, super smart. Where it gets a little bit dicey for me is there's a lot of different tech tools at play. And when you have a business that's 10 people instead of 30 people, you may want to try to optimize tools that you already have versus deploy all of the tools that Nick recommends. I am in that spot right now where I'm trying to figure out which tools can I use and which tools do I need to optimize. So let me tell you a little bit about what he talks about in the book. When it comes to communication, he recommends that you use email primarily for communicating with your customers. and that you use an internal tool like chat, Microsoft Teams, Slack for communicating with your internal people. He recommends that you use something like Asana for all of your planning. So anything that is work goes in the work management tool, which is Asana. Anything that is communication, so you're updating people, you're asking questions, you're getting information, all goes into chat. And any type of interaction with customers all goes into email. And then lastly, he recommends that you have two different ways that you've organized your resources. One is a knowledge base, which is essentially where you find information about what to do. And the other is process management, which is where you find how to do these things. Now, our team has gone through this book. We've read it. We've started a shared document where we are literally typing in all of the things that we want to put in place. And the first thing that we're doing is we're deploying the communication and the planning tools in order to get better at how we communicate with each other. There are a few things that Nick talks about in the book that I think are really smart. The first is stop the scavenger hunt. So he talks about optimizing what you do, communication and work management tools for the retrieval of information. We typically optimize to get things off our plate. So we try to find the lazy path, the easy button, the quickest, shortest way for us to get things off our plate, instead of thinking about how is this going to be in service of the team as a whole when people need to find this information later. Hence the communication tools. When you use email to communicate with your clients, if you're looking for something that is a conversation you have with a client, you're going to find it in email. Now, if you're looking for communication between you and a team member, you're going to look for it in chat. But here's where chat gets interesting. You want to create different spaces or groups that are specific to either different projects or different client work. So in our business, we have projects and we have regular recurring client work. So if someone is a regular recurring client, so I'm going to use Alan Weiss as an example, because you all know that I wrote a book with Alan and we help Alan with all of his technology and marketing. We have a space that's named Alan Weiss, and everyone who is involved in doing anything in his marketing, his website, etc., is in that group. So if there's a question or conversation that needs to take place about how we're solving a problem or how we're deploying something or what ideas we have related to him specifically, it all goes inside of that particular space in our chat, which makes it easy for us to find what we're looking for. Because when you use a chat tool like Google Chat or Slack, for example, and probably Microsoft Teams, I'm not as familiar with it, there are search functions that allow you to find things. So that helps us segregate our communication in a way that helps us find the things that we talk about. Now, your work management tool, Asana, is where your actual action items go. You don't assign a task to somebody in chat. Chat is for conversing. The work management tool is where the actual work goes, because that's where the detailed description goes. That's where the due date goes. That's where the expectations goes. That's where the system comes into play in terms of how you want something done. And so when you start thinking about the best way to stop the scavenger hunt and the best way to make it easy for people to find information, these tools and the way to use these tools all start to make a lot of sense. The other thing that he talks about in this book is fix the sink, don't mop the floor. And I really like that metaphor, because when you are drowning in work, it feels like things are overflowing everywhere. And our tendency is to mop the floor and not look at what's causing the sink to overflow, which is typically your systems. And getting into your knowledge-based tools, getting into your process management tools, that requires a lot of time, effort, and work. It's not an easy thing to do. So if you pick up this book and you read it because you want to create more efficiencies and more bandwidth for your team, I highly suggest you prioritize your approach. Our prioritization is first and foremost communication, secondly planning, and then thirdly, we're going to dive into the resource section. But when we dive into resources, we are going to do it based on the 80-20 principle. So you've all heard me talk about the Pareto principle before. We are going to focus on the 20% of systems or processes or knowledge pieces that we need that we use 80% of the time. Otherwise, you can get stuck in analysis paralysis and you'll never get anything done. So my take is this is an excellent book. It's a really great book to help you think about the systems that you may need to deploy to make your business more effective. One of the things that I like in the book is Nick talks about how this is required reading for his team. Whenever he hires a new team member, it takes 5 hours to read this book, and he expects everyone to read this book as part of their onboarding. So, in addition to figuring out your communication process, figuring out your work process and your resources, you can actually use this book to help you create A, better onboarding, B, have better and more effective meetings, and C, basically buy back time. Because when you start to deploy the things that Nick talks about, all of a sudden you eliminate the time that is wasted in the scavenger hunt looking for the things that you can't find. Now, I don't know about you, but when that happens to me, when I go down a rabbit hole and I can't find things, I become a little bit of a, pardon my language, shit disturber in my company. Because then I start messaging people privately, where's this? Where's this? Where's this? Because I can't find it. And when I start messaging people privately, trying to find the things that I can't find, guess what happens? I take them away from the flow of doing the work that I'm paying them to do. I actually make it harder for them to do what they're supposed to be doing because I can't find what I need. So there's a lot of value in applying some of the principles that Nick talks about in this book in order to create greater efficiencies within your company. And I'm going to argue that not only does it create greater efficiencies and give your team more bandwidth, I'm going to argue that it also helps you to improve your culture. Because when you have guidelines for communication, guidelines for how work gets done, guideline for how resources get organized so that people can find things easily, you eliminate some of the frustration that people find when they feel like they are handicapped or prevented from actually accessing what they need to do their work. No one wants to sit in front of a computer when they've got 30 or 60 minutes left at the end of the day to get something done and spend 30 minutes looking for the information that they need just to be able to do the thing that they need to do. And so if you're experiencing any type of backlog like this in your business, I highly recommend you read Come Up for Air. It's a fantastic book, and there are definitely some fantastic tools, systems, and processes that you can put in place to make your company more effective right now. I hope this was valuable, and I hope you enjoyed my take on this book. Bye for now.